Spotify makes you pay for song lyrics, and Apple faces 5 big challenges. Maybe. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter that keeps you up with everything MacVoices is doing. From our published episodes to Chuck's other appearances to special events and more, subscribe at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay fully informed so you don't miss a thing. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. The MacVoices Live panel takes a look at Spotify's most recent money-making move, putting lyrics behind their paywall. Then we take a look at Apple's 5 biggest challenges. But are they really 5 big challenges? Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. The chat room is quiet tonight. So folks, if you're in there and you have thoughts, we'd love to hear them. The next thing on my agenda, this is not, I want to be very clear here. I'm not picking on anybody, Spotify, but I thought this was an interesting twist that they apparently are taking the lyrics out of the free feeds or the free options and putting it behind, their paid accounts. And, initially it's like, okay, well, why would you do this? Because I can do just a quick Google search on the web and find the lyrics for pretty much anything. But it's not going to be integrated into the product in the same way like it is in Apple Music. And now it won't be in Spotify. Does this seem like a good move? And does this make any difference to anyone?
I completely understand it. For one, every time someone views those lyrics, they do have to pay either BMI or ASCAP. Since
really? Just for the lyrics?
Just for the lyrics, since they are copyrighted material.
So if I look them up on lyricsareus.com, that's a made up one, folks. But if I go, are they having to do the same thing?
Most likely, if they're still around, yes. The unions had gone pretty hardcore into sites that were reprinting the lyrics without permission.
Now it's terrible. I'm trying to think of the implementation on Apple Music. I guess I can go in and look at lyrics without listening to the song.
Yeah. Apple would have definitely paid the songwriters unions for those. For that to happen.
When I was reading the story, I thought it was probably a good move actually by Spotify because they haven't been making a lot of money and they have so many free users that are listening, I'm assuming, with ads. Apple Music doesn't have a free tier. It's always paid. The article did mention that if you had I'm guessing the week free trial, that type of thing, that even that didn't have the lyrics though, and that kind of surprised me because on Apple Music, you kind of get everything when you get the free trial.
Where I wanted to take this conversation though is, so this is a way of adding value to the premium version by taking away from the free version, as opposed to giving you something extra for the paid version.
I wouldn't necessarily say give you something, but maybe differentiate the two products.
Yeah. I mean, they devalued their own brand right off the bat.
Thank you, Ben. That's the word I'm looking for. Devalued. They devalued the free version a little bit. And you can get it back. I mean, it's not like they eliminated it. You can get it back if you pay for it. But I just thought that's an interesting approach that, you're starting to slice it that thin, that this is the way of differentiating your paid product, that you're going to move a feature to that. Now I know before. Hey, Jim, let me do this, and then you. And I know somebody's going to throw it at me that, well, Apple doesn't do a free tier anymore, or Apple never had a free tier, or Apple's no longer doing the lengthy free trials. And you're right, but those were trials. And so I see it as a little different. Jim?
I was going to say, as Ben was saying, that they got to pay. They're not making money, so probably a cost-cutting move. Like, why should we be spending money on these customers that aren't giving us any money? Yeah. Of course, they are spending money anyway on them, but I guess there's ads in the free tier. I never use Spotify, so they are making some money, right? There's ads. Is that right?
I think they have a tier that's free with ads. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they are making money, but I don't know.
Yeah, but when the free version is too good, nobody's going to pay for the premium version.
And I know my brother's a musician. He hates Spotify. I mean, really hates them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Brian, sorry, Jim, go.
I was going to say the amount of money that he gets as an artist from Spotify is like almost like 1/100th of what he gets from Apple Music per play.
Mm-hmm. Brian, you just brought up an Amazon development.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe like 6 months ago, but I think it was a little longer. I think the article's from November of 2022 when Amazon made changes to their streaming music as well. They have I think a few different tiers. One I think is completely free. One with ads. One is included when you have Prime, and then there's a higher tier from that. And the tier that included Prime, you were previously it was less songs. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 2 million instead of 100 million. But you were able to select of those 2 million specific songs that you wanted to hear. Then they changed it in November of 22. They increased it to 98 million songs, I think they had. But I guess you can no longer choose what song. Maybe you can start with one and then it picks something similar to it afterwards, that type of thing, if I remember correctly. So it seems like, it looks like, Spotify followed devaluing their product. Amazon kind of did earlier. In a way, maybe it's kind of like inflation, or shrinkflation. You go to the store, you're not paying any extra for the products, but instead of it being a 16-ounce box of snacks, it's a 14-ounce box of snacks for the same price as 16 ounces. So it's kind of like that same idea, I guess.
Yeah.
Good point. My experience with Amazon, the Amazon Prime tier, was always interesting because I tried it for a little while. Well, I have Prime, so sure, I'll take a shot at it. Mm-hmm. And the experience was I'd ask it to play an artist. It would not let me pick a song, but it would let me pick an artist. And it was undoubtedly the artist, but the track was so deep that half the time I could never find it in anywhere else. I don't know where they were pulling this stuff from. And some of it wasn't bad by any means. It's just like, okay, you're playing this track by, I'm not even going to say because I don't remember the artist, but it happened a number of times where it's like, wow, I've never heard this, and I'm a fan of this artist. I think I own all their music, and or have subscribed to it in Apple Music, and here's something that I've never heard before. So, but then you couldn't find the things that you wanted to hear from that artist either.
I found Amazon, unless you pay for the Amazon Unlimited Music Unlimited service as the extra, their catalog is very limited. There's not, you say any particular artist, and I've tried it many times, and I was like, okay, this isn't working, and I've got YouTube Music as well as Apple Music, and obviously because I'm a paid customer for both of those services, it's going to be a drastic difference. I just never thought that Amazon has done a great job with music, in my opinion. From that end.
Yeah, you say you want Motley Crue, you're going to get the stuff of Karabi.
Yeah.
I like the stuff with Karabi.
It's good, but I mean, most people are expecting Vince Neil when they hear the name Motley Crue.
That's true. That's true. The fact that Karabi did 3 albums and you still expect to hear Vince Neil is interesting. Sorry, little rock and roll discussion there. So the big story of the evening, I'm taking from Ken Ray called this one to my attention on Mac OS Ken today, and he provided his input. These are 5 top risks to Apple stock ahead of the September iPhone 15 event, according to Goldman Sachs. And I really want this crew's opinions, because I felt like most of these there might have been 1, maybe 2 that are Apple specific, but the rest just seems like this could be said about anything going into the fall and into the economic times that we seem to be steering through right now.
Yeah. Number 3 is particularly interesting when they're also talking about Apple leaping ahead of Samsung to be the number 1 device maker.
Yeah, that's worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that one is number 3 is titled "Intensifying Competition."
Yeah.
So is the competition any more intense now all of a sudden than anywhere else, or is it because that Apple has had that success that the competition is seen as intensifying?
I don't know. It just seems like a copy and paste list.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, number 4, the regulatory risks. I think that's a fair one, given everything that we've talked about here that's going on in the EU, and also some of the things even here in the US that Apple's fighting the battles over the App Store exclusivity and all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very fair one. I'm not sure it's new, and I'm not sure it has anything to do with the iPhone 15, but I think that's a very fair concern.
Absolutely.
But all of this is like, Apple might make $1 trillion, or they might make $1.1 trillion. Bottom line, they're going to make $1 trillion.
This number 2 is supply chain disruption, and again, that seems like that could be, maybe technically Apple as a technology company might be a little more subject to it than if you were making shoes. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't pay that much attention to shoe manufacturing, but
that actually seems like it's copy. That point seems like it's copy and pasted from a year ago.
Yeah. And Apple's been really, really good at managing the supply chain. Even a year ago, when we were talking about some of the new iPhones were going to be hard to get, and they were able to fulfill, maybe not as quickly as we'd all hoped, but the early adopters, first ones to sign on, are always could be 2, 3, 5 weeks out from getting their product once they order it, depending on how quickly the demand is. But I think they've been really good, and really that's where Tim Cook came from, was the supply chain organization skills. Right. And I think they're really good at it. Now, I think they have a tendency to spend a lot of money up front buying out every so-and-so's capacity on Sony's cameras, for example, or somebody's nano chips or something like that. But they're really good about that. I thought it was interesting on this article to go back, and I'm not saying there's a cause and effect here, but remember, it was Goldman Sachs that allegedly lost $1 billion plus with their relationship with Apple on the consumer credit side. So I think there's some corporate angst here to a certain extent. I'm not saying it's dramatic. I'm not saying that this is a kill piece or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but there is some could say, well, there's 2 different divisions. It's like Samsung, that they hate Apple's iPhone and they supply parts to Apple's iPhone at the same time. So there's multiple divisions here, but I thought it was interesting that the supply chain, I think they're good at managing it. It is a level playing field sometimes, but I think they get on top of it as quickly as they can.
You know,
Well,
okay.
I was going to say the headline, at least on this Business Insider, I don't know what Goldman Sachs, but the headline is risks is not risks to Apple, it's risks to Apple stock. And, yeah, I mean, newsflash, Apple stock might not go up, and never down.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
And
they still have
it's already really, really high. So it's not going to always go up. So,
and Goldman still has a buy rating on it. They have a target on it, $2 or $222 a share. Yeah, I'm not worried about Apple going broke this month.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Brian, you wanted in.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the article that we discussed last week and how this is a bit of a companion piece to it, in the sense that I think there was a lot of stress on how Apple and how much revenue is coming from service industry, part of their services rather, for the company. And when you look at some of these concerns, some of that is sometimes balanced a little bit by some of the services, especially even Apple. I'm just thinking how Apple has even gotten into more subscription type services besides, you've got Apple TV Plus, and of course there's the strike going on, and the worry of the pipeline there a little bit, I guess. But then people reoccurring Apple One service, iCloud, paying for that on a monthly basis, things of that nature. But even what were the professional apps that now have the subscriptions now too? Was it Final Cut and
for iPad, the Mac version still don't.
Right, but maybe just starting to dabble into those types of things too. But I don't know.
I can't believe they don't mention that they're not going to sell leather stuff anymore. It seems like a real risk.
Yeah, just slash the prices in half now. Yeah, going out of business sale.
Eric?
The Apple's been doing a really good job of giving customers who are not able or quite willing to upgrade products yet the opportunity to continue to pay Apple for not upgrading. And it's a revenue stream they never really took advantage of before, but being able to say, oh yes, I hit the third year or the second year or whatever on my device, and I no longer have Apple Care, but I can't upgrade. Oh yeah, just check this box, and then every month we will bill you to keep your Apple Care going for as many months as you need going forward. And at the end of it, then they turn around and buy a new product, take their other products and give it or sell it or trade it in, and then Apple can turn that around, sell that product. They've got new Apple Care. But the revenue stream just keeps going on a subscription basis, whether they pay for it all up front and then add at the end, whether they switch it to a month by month kind of thing. It's been a whole lot smoother. And it means that every customer they have, they can continue to have something coming in, no matter what their current financial situation is. And that's just been a really brilliant move on Apple's part.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any risks, especially towards sales, it's that with phones as old as the iPhone 12 being still incredibly relevant, nobody's entirely sure of what the upgrade cycle is right now.
And nobody's going to know what the upgrade cycle is. Even right now, at least for me, obviously the features are a question. The cost is a question. Exactly which models are going to be at what price points is a question. But until you know some of those things and then start factoring in the economic conditions, I seriously doubt there's anybody out there that has an iPhone that's going to say, you know what, I really don't want a new one. It's going to be, can I afford it? Does it make financial sense? Does it make feature sense? So I always think that the whole upgrade cycle thing is kind of bogus, because I don't know how you evaluate what percentage of the market says, I can't wait for that new periscope lens. or I can't wait to have the OLED screen, or whatever the next improvement's going to be.
A couple of things. I want to get to some of the comments that Mark Gurman made in his weekly newsletter on Sunday. But first of all, one of the things that we're supposedly getting ready to transfer over to is from the Lightning cable over to USB-C. And I think that if Apple really had their druthers, they would have stayed with the Lightning cable, because that was their proprietary system. And of course, the European Union, among others, but mainly European Union, was forcing them to go universal. I think one of the things that is a sidelight of that is that I wonder how this made for iPhone labeling system that I think Apple probably makes millions of dollars giving that certification to different third-party vendors, how that's going to react under the USB-C world. Now, maybe they'll have some circuit in the new USB-C cables that will increase their throughput speed, their data transfer speed. Maybe they'll do something like that. If they can, I'm not sure if they can or not. I'm going to assume that they can. But I thought it was interesting that how this transfer to USB-C, the long-term effects of getting away from Apple's proprietary Lightning cable, which they like, I didn't have a problem with. It's interesting too that you're going to have the same cable interface across the entire product line now, between the iPhones and then the iPads and to the Macs, or at least the MacBooks themselves. It does lend some commonality to it, and it gets away from the proprietary circuitry that Apple had with the Lightning cable. The other thing that I thought was interesting, let's see, the licensing revenue, that was it, in the ecosystem. Why don't we just leave it there? I think that there's a huge downstream PR. I don't want to call it a hit, but there's some public relations issue that they're going to have to face. And I don't mean this year. I don't mean next year, but maybe further on down the line. I think when we first started talking about going to Lightning, I think it was Jim Ray who talked about, what if there's somebody that comes out with a better technology on data transfer or connectivity of some kind, and we're stuck with staying with USB-C, and that was the problem with the EU and the regulatory environment mandating what the interface is going to be on the computer. I thought that was really well said, Jim.
Your point about the MiFi certification, or the Apple certification for the cables is interesting, Webb, because we've had discussions here about what a mess USB-C cables and Thunderbolt cables are. And from a charging standpoint, from a data transfer standpoint, I mean, if it doesn't matter to you, then by all means, go to the drugstore and buy one of those Lightning cables that's sitting there next to the checkout counter, and take your chance as to whether you fry your phone or not. But if you want top performing charging, top performing data transfer, and all of that, then maybe there is still room for a certified cable that comes from Apple. Just like there's certain cable manufacturers out there right now. OWC jumps to mind. That yes, it's more expensive, but you are guaranteed to have full charge capability, full throughput capability, and so in some ways, it's just easier to spend those few extra dollars and say, now I know my cable is A, safe, and B, performing at the best level it can.
Yeah.
So,
and there's also non-MFI Lightning cables out there.
Sure. I'm sure.
Well, if we're switching to USB-C, there will only be one product left with Lightning, and that's the Apple Mouse. The great design of the charging port on the bottom.
Yeah.
Will we see a new mouse at next week if this all happens? I don't know.
Isn't there a pencil that uses lightning?
The first generation pencil,
First gen.
Which they still sell.
Right, because doesn't that connect with the basic iPad? Is it they use Pencil 1 instead of Pencil 2? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The 9th gen iPad, which is still being sold.
Yeah.
Webb, I wanted to especially, though, ask you to comment on number 5 on the list, the capital allocation, because this seemed, I don't know what to make of this. I mean, I've never heard of any restrictions on share repurchases. And as Mark Fuccio has pointed out here, share repurchases are hardly ever discussed on the earnings call or after the earnings call, because they're just not sexy. And so, they just happen and that's it. But any thoughts on number 5 and everything there that is the dark clouds are trying to put on capital allocation?
They they made the comment here, the last sentence of the first paragraph has a history of Apple repurchases, which could prove to be dilutive or come under deeper regulatory scrutiny. Normally, stock repurchases tend to be accretive and not dilutive. You're lowering the base, and that means a greater per share value. So that's I didn't quite agree with that. The regulatory scrutiny, Apple could want to go out and buy someone, and the Federal Trade Commission says no, that's you're restricting trade. That could always happen. Look at Microsoft and the game company and trying to get that through in the Great Britain right now is an example of that. Let's see, despite the risks, Ning pointed out that Apple's strong brand loyalty, evidenced by its massive installed base of more than 1 billion iPhone users, should help power continued revenue growth. Think about this for a second. So give me this. There's 1 billion iPhone users out there, and we're going to go to a new iPhone upgrade cycle. What do we consider successful? If they have a 10% upgrade audience, that's a million phones. That's not bad. I don't think Apple's looking for all billion people to upgrade all at once. I don't think they can handle it, but I think that there's a cycle to it. There are certain people like me and 2 of you that are on here that I know of, they're on the upgrade program. So we'll probably order a new iPhone next week anyway. How do we measure success? How do we measure if the iPhone 15 is a success or not? Because a lot of people are saying that they're losing revenue and they're losing their audience and so on and so forth. What's the measure of success? And I'm not sure what that is. I think if they sell 1 million or 2 million iPhones in the first 2 quarters of their fiscal year, I would say that's not a failure. Okay. But if they don't sell all billion, does that mean that they failed? I think that's a little much of a stretch. I think Apple's probably has a plan. They have their own definition what success is going to be. I think they will succeed. I think they'll be very happy with however many iPhone 15s that they sell.
Yeah, but honestly, most earnings calls and analysts and stock prices aren't based, or should I say just the stock prices aren't based on Apple's metrics. It's basically based on what the analysts think they should get.
And it's also based strictly on GAAP accounting too. So
yeah.
And how do you know what Apple should get with the current economic conditions that we have and all of the uncertainty surrounding pretty much everything?
And that's the problem. It's all highly subjective.
The Mac Voices Live panel is back next time to finish up our conversation about the challenges facing Apple. Then we turn our attention to Threads and whether it is thriving or not, and how you define the minimum viable product and whether Threads launch met that definition. That and more all next time on Mac Voices. I'm Chuck Joyner. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.